the words, the communication methods which needs to be used, the communication channel, the language, the syntax. Understanding all of these will become very important while doing the communication in the project. So project communication management is the area that informs the team and stakeholders about the project. So the communication management system is determined along with how it is done and how often it is done, how frequently the communication has to be made. So managing communications should also involve reviewing how effective the communication is and how the regularly the modifications are being done to ensure the communication is actually fulfilling the requirements of communication needs. That needs to be discussed regularly and looked at. Is that helping? So it is very essential as the stakeholders are identified that communication requirement should also identified. And what communication? Why is that communication? How often, how frequently the communication has to be made? What channel, what template which has to be used, and what language? So all these needs to be understood, signed off. So when you go and inform or sends a message to the sponsor, it will have specific objective of that communication. Similarly, when you send it to team member, specific objective. Here in these two aspects, the frequency will change, the language will change, the stakeholders to whom the communication is made changes, and impact it has to create in that communication will also change. So that needs to be understood. The project manager should be very sensitive about it. So communication management plays very important role, whereas 90% of the time project manager will be spending his effort and time in communicating. If that is not effective, it is difficult to become successful in project management. Now let us look at the processes in project communication management. So there are three processes, that is plan communication management, manage communications, and monitor communications. So plan communication management is part of planning process group, manage communication is part of executing process group, monitor communication is part of monitoring and control process groups. The next knowledge area is project risk management. So when we use the term risk, it's all about an uncertainty, what we're speaking about. So every assignment we take up, every initiative we do, everything involves risk. Similarly, project also involves risk. So risk, which is termed as an uncertainty of certain occurrence, are both positive as well as negative. The positive risk we call it as opportunities, whereas negative risk we call it as threats. So each of these risk has to be treated certain way. So before you treat or decide on certain treatment of the risks identified, risks needs to be analyzed. So qualitative analysis, quantitative analysis has to be done and risk responses has to be planned. So the project risk management is the knowledge area which will identify how the risks are itemized, categorized and prioritized in the risk register. Similarly, risks are prioritized and qualitatively and quantitatively analyzed. So based on their impact on the project, the necessary response plan will be defined. So risk has to be controlled by reviewing the risk register regularly and removing the risks that no longer impact the project. Now the risk once identified, mainly risks are identified, some set of risks are already identified, captured in project charter, whereas in detail risks are identified during the planning associated with many different aspects of the project. The risk related to scope, schedule, time, cost, quality, resources, maybe procurement, stakeholders. So risks are categorized accordingly and identified. Now this is not the list which is made. It is not an exhaustive list which is made in one go. So this acts as a basic list. As the project progresses, all these identified risks needs to be evaluated on continual basis, and also new risks needs to be identified regularly, so that what are the kinds of risks which comes up are understood and then response plans are accordingly taken. So this helps in managing the risks effectively and efficiently. The processes involved in risk management knowledge area are plan risk management, identify risk, perform qualitative risk analysis, perform quantitative risk analysis, and plan risk response, which are part of planning process group. Whereas implement risk response will be part of executing process group and monitor risks. This will be part of monitoring and control process group. So when we say identify risk, this is when you identify the risk here and captured in the risk register. And as I mentioned earlier, this is not a list which is exhaustive. So at the moment, whatever the risks are being identified, so these risks are analyzed now as part of this planning, qualitatively as well as quantitatively. But the analysis of the risk, assessing those risks, should continue throughout the project life cycle, because the impact level of the risk would vary as it progresses throughout the project life cycle. Now, as we have a risk response plans defined, and for some it is already implemented, some you cannot implement, you need to make yourself ready to tackle the scenario of issues when it occurs, when risk occurs. You need to handle those. So have that capability built, or having some contingency plans. Any of such actions are taken, and project should be ready. Means when risk occurs, the impact occurred, and I'm just okay with it, that will not work. So project will get impacted. It may escalate the cost. It may delay the project closure. Many things it will happen. So proper analysis and then actions in time. Right risk response plans can be implemented. So for positive risk, for opportunities, generally acceptance or exploit or taking advantage of that would be the kind of response we will see. For the negative risk, the threats, the kind of responses what we would see is like avoid or have a contingency plan or mitigate the risk in terms of having some measures implemented. Transfer risk is another thought which is done. So if someone says avoid risk, that behavior is called as risk averse behavior, someone who don't even take risks. So if I take up this, I have the risk of so much, so I will not even take up that, such behaviors. So those are the kinds of risk responses may come across, which needs to be implemented as part of executing process group. Then whatever the plan, whatever the implementation which has happened, that needs to be monitored as part of monitoring and control. So next knowledge area for us is project procurement management. So when we say procurement, so every project involves procuring something. So a main decision which happens here is make or buy decision. So should I make it myself? Should I create myself within the organization, or should I do something or purchase something? So make or buy decision. So when I decide I'm going to buy certain things from outside, because we cannot make everything as part of our organization, because the direction of the business is totally different. If I'm a bank and I'm doing an IT project, I need not go and sit and start configuring a server. So I need not hire people who configure and then they come and sit here and I start managing them. So my entire focus of banking services, which I need to focus on, will go for toss. I should not do that. So instead I'll give to an experts. So procurement of an IT services from an IT service provider I will do. So to giving it to the experts rather than doing myself, which helps me to have that expertise coming to me. So procurement management involves in identifying those resources, the products or services which needs to be procured to use in my project, so that I need not spend time on that. So this involves identification of the suppliers, having those subcontractors, right? So they will have an engagement through a contract, and monitoring and managing them and establishing a relationship with them and engaging with them in appropriate way that is required. It is very essential to be done in every project. So that way project procurement management would guide in terms of handling all the procurements what we do from outside, external to the organization. So this knowledge area handles outside procurements like hiring subcontractors. Outside needs of projects are identified and how much they are determined. This involves a statement of work, terms of reference, request for proposal, and choosing a vendor. So to do this, bidder conference happens. Floating request for proposals can happen. Request for quotation can happen. So many such actions are taken, and the processes involved here are three mainly. So plan procurement management, which is part of planning process group, conduct procurement, which is part of executing process group, and control procurement, which is part of monitoring and control process group. So the next knowledge area is project stakeholder management. So when we say stakeholder, who is the stakeholder? Stakeholders are internal, stakeholders are external, stakeholders are the one who influence, stakeholders impact, they will get impacted, they are influenced. So likewise, for every project, every initiative organization takes, there are stakeholders. For me, for my project, I need to identify all the stakeholders. So now identification of stakeholder, engaging with stakeholder, managing these stakeholders will become very essential. So as part of this knowledge area, after identification of stakeholders, the need of stakeholders needs to be understood. So not every stakeholders are identified will have very close to the project. They are not in very close proximity to the project. The distance of the stakeholder from the project may be far. Still, they may have an impacted because of this. We need to understand that if I am building a flyover, construction of a flyover is happening, obviously people living in that region will get impacted. But they have no direct involvement in the project. However, their cooperation is required. So likewise, as we identify the stakeholders, we need to understand what kind of impact or influence that stakeholder will have on them or on the project from them. This needs to be analyzed. So stakeholders needs to be identified, their concerns need to be identified and must be managed. Some stakeholders would come up with certain powers, authorities. So we need to understand that as well. So each of the stakeholders needs to be listed out, their concerns prioritized based on their impact on the project. Then the stakeholders need to be engaged and determine if their needs are being addressed. If not, what can be done to rectify those, if at all any issues exist. So various stakeholders, state also can exist. There is a stakeholder who should be very supportive in the project, actively involved in the project, but the stakeholder may be in an unaware state. So we may require to engage with the stakeholder, bring that clarity, explain, and then ensure that stakeholder is supportive to the project. Some stakeholders may be resistive, some stakeholder may be neutral, some stakeholder will be very supportive, unaware. So various different state of stakeholders would exist, but one needs to analyze what kind of state that stakeholder should be in this project. That needs to be discussed, understood, and then decide. So accordingly, engagement should happen. So stakeholder engagement plan needs to be defined very clearly. So now here we have four processes. So one process in initiating process group, that is identify stakeholder. Then plan stakeholder engagement, which happens in planning. Manage stakeholder engagement, which is executing process group. And monitor stakeholder engagement is monitoring and control process group. As I mentioned in risk management, in stakeholder management also, identification of stakeholder, analyzing the way stakeholder engagement should happen and deciding that engagement. This is very dynamic, which has to happen throughout the project life cycle. And this is not one time register what we create, like stakeholder register if we create, it is not one time register, it is dynamic, which gets updated throughout the life cycle of the project.
And today, we will learn about PMP certification. Before we begin, let's have a look at an incident where two project managers, John and Ted, are talking to each other. John is a senior project manager while Ted is a part of his team. John finds Ted to be upset, so he asks him, is there anything he can help him with? To which Ted replies that his project failed. John further asks him what could be the possible reason for the project failure. Ted tells him that it's because he was not able to manage the time and budget. Now John asks him if he is PMP certified, to which Ted says he isn't. Then John suggests Ted that he must take the PMP certification, which will not only give his project better performance, but also help him upskill in his career. So today, we will discuss about PMP certification in detail. Let's first have a look at all the topics we will cover. We will begin with what is PMP, then we will check top 10 reasons to get PMP certified, followed by the basics of PMP. Then, after we know the PMP basic concepts, we will check who can get this certification and pattern for the PMP exam. Then we will learn about the PMBOK guide, which is an integral part to prepare for the PMP exam. Finally, we will see the cost and the validity of the certification. So without any further ado, let's begin with what is PMP. PMP, or Project Management Professional, is the world's most renowned project management certification for project managers. This certification is provided by the Project Management Institute. Now, when we know what is Project Management Professional or PMP certification, let's have a look at some reasons why you should get PMP certified. Today, I will give you top 10 reasons to take PMP certification. PMP certification helps you become a better project manager. The process that helps us acquire the certification goes to several phases like gaining project management experience and passing the PMP exam, which helps you in bringing sanity to the project manager. The process helps project managers to learn different industry trends, have practical knowledge, and several other project management constraints. The second reason that we have is project management certification makes a resume more valuable. As we have discussed earlier, that PMP certification is the most renowned project management certification, so having it on the resume will definitely help the interviewer recognize our skills. There are companies that only accept project managers who are PMP certified. PMP certification not only helps in switching the job or finding a new one, it helps in progressing in the current company as well. The third reason that we have is it provides more job opportunities. When one acquires the PMP certification, it proves that one has expertise in completing the project effectively and efficiently. So the certification increases the trust factor of the interviewer in you and increases your probability of getting that job. The fourth reason that we have is salary hikes. PMP certified project manager is one of the highest paid jobs around the globe, and this trend will continue to grow. The global survey by the Project Management Institute shows that PMP certified project managers tend to get 20% more salary than the non-certified project managers. The next reason that we have is PMP certification validates your dedication to the job. The certification requires several months of training. It requires several hours of project management experience and exposure. This experience and exposure explains the seriousness of a project manager towards its career path. Then, sixth we have is PMP certification is globally acknowledged. PMP certification is the most renowned certification all over the world. It helps project managers to be a part of different types of industries all over the globe. PMP certification is the most renowned certification all over the world. Project managers who are PMP certified may get jobs in different types of industries all over the world. PMP certification not only provides theoretical knowledge but also helps in gaining practical knowledge, which further helps in increasing the confidence of a project manager. The next reason that we have is better project performance. PMP certified project managers tend to deliver better projects than the non-PMP certified project managers. This is because PMP certified project managers are well aware of 5 process groups, 10 knowledge areas, and 49 processes, which helps them have a clear picture of different aspects involved in a project. The eighth reason that we have is it increases your networking opportunities. There are several communities that one becomes a part of when they sign up as a PMI member. These communities have meetings regarding new job opportunities, and this helps in having a professional network. The ninth reason that we have is job security. Job security is a major reason that a professional thinks of before opting for a particular profession. Today, in the world of recession, where companies are drowning, the demand for PMP certified project managers goes on increasing. The last and the 10th reason we have is expertise in practical application. When one appears for a PMP exam, they need extensive preparation. They need to have thorough knowledge of process groups and knowledge areas, which help them develop several essential skills and move ahead in their career. Now, as we move further, we will look into the PMP basic concepts. The PMP basic concepts are the 5 project management steps. These project management steps start from the day we begin our project to the day we end our project. They begin from initiation to closure. The first step that we have is initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and closure. Now, let's have a look at each of them in detail. The first step we have is initiation. Initiation involves defining the project scope. This is the step where we explain what our project will have, for whom we are making that project. It helps us to identify our stakeholders, who all will be the part of that project, and determine the project feasibility. After the step of initiation, when we have decided the scope of our project, the second step that comes is planning. In the planning phase, we define a flow to all the activities of a project. We define this flow keeping in mind all the constraints of a project like time, resources, and risk. After we have defined the flow of these processes, it is time for us to look at the execution. In the execution phase, we evaluate the plan and the sequence of the tasks we have made. We finally put the plan in action and the project tends to start. After the project building has started and the process of execution has started, it is time for the monitoring and the controlling phase. In monitoring and controlling phase, the progress of the project is tracked and important steps for quality assurance are taken. In monitoring and controlling phase, the work being done is compared with the work as defined in the project plan. In this phase, the progress of the project is tracked and important steps for quality assurance are taken. Finally, we have the closure step. In this step, the deliverables are delivered to the client, the documentation of all that took place during the project lifecycle is done, and project is fully evaluated. Now, when we have seen reasons for getting PMP certified and we know the basic concepts of PMP, it is time for us to know who can get PMP certified. For getting PMP certified, there can be two cases. The first case says you must have a secondary degree. A secondary degree means high school diploma or an associate degree or a degree that is globally equivalent to all of these. Then you need to have 7,500 hours of leading and directing projects and 3,500 hours of project management education. There can be two cases. First case can be you must have a secondary degree. That means a high school diploma, associate's degree or the global equivalent degree. Then you must have 7,500 hours of project management experience and 35 hours of education in project management. The second case can be you must have a 4-year degree along with 4,500 hours of project management experience and 35 hours of education in project management. Now, when we know who can get PMP certified, we will see the PMP exam pattern. The exam comprises of 200 questions, out of which 175 questions are used for evaluation. One can answer these questions if they have thorough knowledge of 5 process groups and 10 knowledge areas. The time provided to complete the exam is 4 hours. The questions that are asked are of different types, the most common type being formula-based, situation-based, and knowledge-based. Now, when we have discussed about the exam pattern, discussing about the PMBOK guide becomes very important. So the next topic that we have is PMBOK guide. PMBOK guide or project management body of knowledge is a book that comprises of several processes and different terminologies needed to crack the PMP exam. The whole syllabus of PMP exam is covered in the PMBOK guide by the project management and 10 knowledge areas. Apart from this, there are 49 processes that are divided amongst 5 process groups, 10 knowledge areas. Finally, let's have a look at the cost and validity of the PMP certification. When we talk about the cost of the certification, there can be two cases. The first case can be if we are not a member of Project Management Institute, the exam fees is $555. The second case can be if we are a member of Project Management Institute, the exam fees is $405. If we talk about the validity of the certification, the certificate is valid for a period of 3 years. After every 3 years, the certificate needs to be renewed. To renew the certificate, one needs to furnish a proof of 60 PDUs or professional development units. After so much information, Ted thanks John for his time and promises to take the PMP certification at the shortest notice. Now, let's have a look at the salary trends of a PMP certified project manager and a sample resume. If we consider the salary of a non-PMP certified project manager, it is approximately $91,000, while if we consider the salary of a PMP certified project manager, it is approximately $111,000, which is approximately 20% higher than the non-certified project manager's salary. Now, let's have a look at the resume of a PMP certified project manager. If you are somebody with PMP certification and looking for a project manager or a senior project manager role, your resume should look something like this. The summary in the beginning would include how much experience you have and anything that supports your claim of being a project manager. Like here, James Brown has written, he has more than 10 years of experience with generating and building projects. Then, when you talk about your experience, you should put something that emphasizes on the responsibilities that you had, your area of expertise, put something that shows your skill set for the desired post, and also something that you learned from your former job role. This shows that you have command over your work and also the determination to skill and upskill yourself. Like here, James Brown has 3 years of experience as an assistant manager training new associates and then more than 3 years of experience as a project manager where he not only led projects but also learned new project management tools like Trello and Primavera. After this, add relevant information regarding your education. Your resume must include skills that you have or you have gained in your years of experience. Like here, James Brown has divided his skills into 2 parts, where he has written his technical skills and non-technical skills. He has included a skill of agile and quality assurance software, as well as he has his knowledge of different project management tools. Then putting your certifications play a major role. This proves that you are up to date and updated with current market trends. James Brown has his certifications in C and Java, and more importantly, he has his project management certification, Project Management Professional. In this session, we will discuss about project manager roles and responsibilities. Let's first have a look at all the topics we will be covering today. First, we will see who is a project manager. Then, we will check the roles and responsibilities of a project manager. Moving forth, we will analyze the salary of a project manager and the steps that will help us become a project manager. Finally, we will see a project manager's resume. So without any further ado, let's get started with who is a project manager. Project manager, in simple words, is a professional who manages the project. Project manager plays an integral role from the first phase of the project lifecycle to the last phase of project lifecycle. This individual is a part of all the activities that produce the final deliverables and strive towards the success of the project. Now, let's consider some must-have skills of a project manager. First we have is strong communication skills. The communication skills help the project manager to communicate the organization's mission and vision to the team members in a clear, concise manner. These communication skills help project manager to explain their thoughts and requirements to customers and stakeholders. The next we have is effective leadership skills that helps in forming a team of skilled professionals and lead them in the best possible manner. The next skill that a project manager must have is a team management skill. As a project manager, it is very important to know how to manage your team to achieve a common goal with complete harmony. A project manager must have strong negotiation skills, as project managers have to negotiate at each and every step. This negotiation might be with the customers, stakeholders, or team members. These negotiation skills become of utmost importance when project members get into a fight or an argument. Then we have critical thinking. This is what makes a project manager more effective and efficient in project management. This thinking capability is needed to take difficult steps, talk to stakeholders, and resolve several issues throughout the course of the project. The last skill that a project manager must have is risk management skill. Handling a project is an important step, but what is equally important is risk management. This is the process required to identify, analyze, and respond to the risk factors throughout the project lifecycle. Now, when we know who a project manager is, we must have a look at the roles and responsibilities of a project manager. The first and the foremost role of a project manager is to set up a project scope, check its feasibility, and determine the resources that are needed to satisfy the project scope. Second role that a project manager has is the development of a project plan according to the project scope. The plan is needed to encourage the team to hard work with all their dedication. Next, a project manager is supposed to set deadlines for the project deliverables. He or she is supposed to manage time as a priority and communicate with the team at regular intervals. Next important role is to analyze, track, and control the budget of the project. Project manager has to make sure that the project does not run out of budget and is optimized as possible. Moving forth, effective communication is one of the most important skills of a project manager. He/she is supposed to maintain communication with all the stakeholders throughout the project. Then we have is the identification and evaluation of risk in a project. Project manager must take steps to minimize the effect of risk in a project. The next role of a project manager is to track and control the performance of the team. This helps in yielding the best outputs with the least number of resources. Last role a project manager must have is to provide reports and documentation of all the steps involved in project management. This helps in future projects and makes sure that the mistakes that happened in the project will not happen again in ongoing projects. Now, it's time for us to check the salary of a project manager. The data shows that an average salary of a project manager in India is approximately 14 lakh rupees per annum, while the average salary of a project manager in United States is $83,215 per year. The next important thing we must learn is how can we get a project manager's job? There are 4 important steps that one must fulfill to become a project manager. The first step is to have a bachelor's degree. It is important for a person to be a graduate. One can hold a bachelor's degree in any area of interest like marketing, computer science, or even engineering. This entirely depends on the type of project manager one wants to be. The second important step is gaining project management experience. This means that a person must have experience in leading and directing projects. Project management experience helps in taking different project management certifications, which further help in having a good paying job. The third essential step is to learn project management tools. There are different project management tools for different area of interest. These tools help in quick and efficient management of work. Project management tools are used widely by organizations now. Learning these tools will increase the chances of getting selected in one of those organizations. The fourth and the last step is getting project management certified. Project management certifications help an individual to increase the value of their certification and validates their dedication to the job. Nowadays, several organizations have made it compulsory for a project manager to be project management certified. There may be several project management certifications, out of which Project Management Professional Certification or PMP certification is one of the most common and widely accepted certifications. The Project Management Institute or the PMI predicts that there will be 22 million new project management jobs by the year 2027. Now, it's time for us to know how a resume of an aspiring project manager looks like. If you are somebody looking for a project manager role or a senior project manager role, then your resume should look something like this. The summary in the beginning would include how much experience you have and anything that supports your claim of being a project manager. Like here, James Brown has written, he has more than 10 years of experience with generating and building projects. Then, when you talk about your experience, you should put something that emphasizes on the responsibilities that you had and your area of expertise. Put something that shows your skill set for the desired post and also something that you learned from your former job role. This shows that you have command over your work and also the determination to upskill yourself. Like here, James Brown has 3 years of experience as an assistant manager where he trained new associates, and then 3 years of experience as a project manager where he not only led projects but also learned new project management tools like Trello and Primavera. After this, add relevant information regarding your education. Your resume must include skills that you have or you have gained in your years of experience. Like here, James Brown has divided his skills in two parts where he has written his technical skills and non-technical skills. He has included his skill of agile and quality assurance software, as well as he has his knowledge of different project management tools like Trello and Primavera. Then putting your certifications play a major role. This proves that you're up to date and updated with current market trends. James Brown has his certifications in C and Java. And more importantly, he has his project management certification in Project Management Professional or PMP.
Here, as part of this video, we are going to look at few plausible questions which one would face while going through an interview. This will help them to prepare for interview and also help to understand what kind of questions would come across when they face the interview. In addition to that, these questions also has an insight towards the role of project management itself. So let us look at one by one. Question number 1. How do you define a project? So as per the PMI's PMBOK 6th edition, a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service or results. The temporary nature of projects indicates that a project has a definite beginning and end. So when we say this temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service or results, each project will have a definite start date and end date. Once the project team is formed, once the project objectives are achieved, so the team which is formed, the human resources which are onboarded to a project, so those are disseminated, sent back to their respective functions or departments, and project will be concluded as complete. So project can be simple or complex and may be managed by a single person or a group of them. So every project will have a life cycle. So from beginning to end, it starts and end where it acquires lot of resources, where it will divide the project life cycle into multiple stages or phases, where project is being done and deliverables will happen through the milestones during that life cycle. So projects are often broken into small tasks to utilize team strengths and increase productivity. Question number 2. What is a project charter? So project charter is a short document that explains the entire project. So this will become a basic document which will be given to a project manager so that a project manager can understand what is a project management is all about. So this document would include the objectives of the project, how will they be carried out, who are the stakeholders, identification of risks, advantages of the project and the budget. So project charter plays an integral while planning the project, as a plan is something that is used in all the phases of project life cycle. It is very essential because it provides all the necessary insights a project manager is needed while taking up the project. After getting the project charter, the first job a project manager is supposed to do is to identify the stakeholders. Even though project charter will have a basic list of stakeholders, so project manager has to contact those stakeholders establish the list of stakeholders for the project, understand the requirements in detail, and further move towards planning. What is meant by scope of the project? So project scope is most essential part of project planning that helps in determining the list of specific project goals or deliverables. So when we say this, project will have a definite, unique deliverable which has to be created. So this will have a specific description of the specification as well as the features, functionalities of the deliverable. So to accomplish that features functionality of that output, what we're going to create as a result of a project, within a project, lot of activities are done. The processes, the tools, the resources which are utilized for the project all falls under this scope. So when we say the term scope, it is very important for us to understand the scope of a project versus scope of the product. The scope of the project involves all those processes, resources and activities what we do to accomplish the result. Whereas product scope is the one which we speak about the result itself, the features, functionalities of that result itself. So one needs to understand the difference between this project scope and product scope and define accordingly. So this will help in identification of the project's output and why that output is created and how this particular product or services or results will help organization or business to accomplish their objectives. This should be the basic understanding a project manager should have. So it includes everything that is to be achieved by the project, which means all those results what needs to be achieved, all those value which has to be created by the results. So we need to keep in mind the result itself is not the ultimate objective of an organization. It is not. Instead, the result will help organization to accomplish their objectives. For example, if you take in HR department, if they introduce an intranet portal for claim processing, so the application what is created as part of the exercise of initiative where my employees should submit their claims through a specific portal. Now that is to reduce the time, the processing duration as well as the efficiency and effectiveness of the processed claim what is submitted. So there is an outcome. So keeping that outcome, the objective, this portal is created. That portal itself has the features and functionalities which project will focus and create that results. So through that result, organization would accomplish their objectives. That should be kept in mind. So understanding the scope is essential. So while understanding the scope, also need to understand how this particular output, the product results, is going to add value to the business. What is the outcome of that? That is also very important to understand. One is understanding the scope, ensuring the project is delivered within that scope, and all that required to be done to accomplish that scope has to be done, and only that, not anything more than that, not anything lesser than that. What is project life cycle? As I was mentioning during the question 3, there is a project scope. So project itself has a life cycle. So this project scope falls under this project life cycle. So project life cycle refers to the beginning and end of the project. So there is a life. So you initiate a project, trigger a project is actually started, and as it starts, it progresses, creating the results, and then it ends. Project can end in various different scenarios. One is by accomplishing the objective of the project, the ultimate results, the deliverable it creates, and then ends. Or project may also get closed prematurely. So we are not going to look at the why the project is going to close prematurely at the moment. Our idea is to understand what is project life cycle and to visualize that. So this entire span of time the project spends from the beginning to end. It involves various different stages or phases, whatever the term you want to call it. And in each of these stages or phases, there is a milestone deliverables which are measured, and that will be part of the ultimate deliverable, what is going to be delivered as a result of a project. So it involves all the activities, all the processes, all the resources which needs to be acquired, managed, and then the results needs to be accomplished ultimately. So here in a project life cycle, it involves 5 process groups which mainly focuses on different activities and dynamics of the project, which we call it as the initiation process group, planning process group, execution process group, monitoring and controlling process group, and closure process group. So during initiation process group, the creation of a project charter, appointment of the project manager, and identification of the key stakeholder will be done. This can be initiation of the project as a whole or as a part of a specific stage or a phase. Now, all these process group, what I mentioned, initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, closure, all of these process groups can be looked at their involvement in the entire project life cycle. At the same time, it can also be seen as part of a single phase. So each of the process groups are applicable, like initiation of a project, if I say, similarly, initiation of a stage or a phase. So the planning process group involves the process of creating the plan for achieving the project's objectives. So this would create the detailed plan for entire project or a skeleton plan for a project if it is a agile or rolling wave project. If that approach is taken like rolling wave or progressive elaboration or agile approaches, then the skeleton of the project plan is created. If waterfall approach is taken, it's quite obvious the comprehensive, the detailed project plan will be created. Project management plan is also involved in this. Now, in addition to this, as we progress in the project, for each stage or a phase, there needs to be a plan which is detailed further compared to the project plan itself, which will become ultimately part of big plan of a project. The execution process groups involves the project management processes for identification, allocation, and management of resources required for executing the project deliverables. So here the actual execution happens. Being a project manager, the focus should be on managing the project. So many a time I have seen project manager is going and doing tasks, looking at the task level, transaction level, which was not project management thought. So one needs to ensure the project management is not about deliverables in terms of doing the tasks. It's about getting the deliverables from the team. So active involvement in terms of acquiring the resources, checking whether the accomplishment of results has happened needs to be done throughout the project lifecycle. So it's all about directing and manage project works and at the same time managing the knowledge which is acquired during the project lifecycle. The monitoring and controlling process groups involves the process for project manager to monitoring and controlling the project. Now this involves reviewing, this involves creation of reports, this involves concluding yes project has delivered or not delivered, identification of the deviations and initiating with a change request for necessary corrections. So monitoring and control will be done throughout the project life cycle, and only with an effective monitoring and control we can see the success in a project. So the closure process group involves the process which is required for formally closing the project, where everything including what went wrong and what went right all through the project is summed up. So here, especially in the closing process group, we will not focus on acceptance of the deliverable. Instead, we'll focus on sign off, capturing lessons learned, all the formalities which needs to be completed as part of a closure. Then where are we going to accept the deliverables? This happens in monitoring and controlling. So while doing the monitoring and controlling, we will validate against what is planned, comparing with what is being delivered. So when we compare both, one would understand what is delivered versus what actually was planned. So their acceptance happens. Once the acceptance happens there, only then the project moves towards closure. Project or phase, either of that. So when we say closure process group, it involves the process for a closure of that phase, whether accomplishment of all the objectives, all the deliverables of that phase is done or not is checked if it is a phase. If it is a project, in the project perspective, if everything is complete is checked, and then it moves to closing process group, where the lessons learned, the formal sign off, everything will be done as part of this closing process group. What is the importance of process groups? So process groups are set of processes that are applicable to various stages of the project, as I mentioned earlier. Each of the processes has a defined set of inputs and produce defined outputs by applying a set of tools and techniques on the input. The initiation process groups involves the processes needed to initiate the project, that is develop project charter and identify stakeholders, the two processes. The project charter will be handed over to the project manager and formal declaration of appointment of the project manager will be done. Further, project manager has to identify the key stakeholders and take forward the project as per the direction set in the project charter. So in this group, in this process group, initiation process group, it is a formal declaration of appointment of project manager to the project. But one needs to remember, should not get confused, in real time, we see an individual who is about to become a project manager for a project sits and create a project charter. We have seen that in reality. So does it mean that what is told here is wrong compared to what is practiced? That is not the idea. Many organization thinks if we involve the project manager to be project manager of a project while creating the project charter itself, the level of information, the detail that person will have about a project will be more compared to a person who will become a project manager after handing over the project charter. So there is a difference. The person takes the project charter and become aware of the project. That is one scenario. The person actively involved in creating a project charter and then become a project manager. That is better scenario where the person will be more informed. But ultimately the accountability of a project charter lies with the sponsor. Formal declaration of appointment of project manager, confirmation of that happens only when project charter is approved and handed over to the person who is to be project manager. So that's where actual initiation of project happens. Then project manager can move ahead and start identifying the stakeholders and start collecting the details of the stakeholders, their requirements. And stakeholders cannot give all the requirements coming to their mind. They need to restrict to those project detailing what needs to be provided. The planning process group defines the detailed plan of the project, which involves the planning for scope, time, cost, quality, resource, risk, procurement, stakeholders, communication, and integration of all these subsidiary plans. Each of these plans, like scope management plan, schedule management plan, cost management plan, quality management plan, resource management plan, risk management plan, procurement management plan, stakeholder engagement plan, communication management plan. So all these plans are called as subsidiary plans. So all these plans are integrated and detailed project management plan will be created. So this involves various tools and techniques like expert judgment, meetings, analogous estimation, parametric estimation, decomposition, PERT, critical path method, depending on the specific area which is being focused on while planning. For example, expert judgment is a common technique used across all the areas like scope, time, cost, quality, all of these 9 areas, knowledge areas which I was mentioning. Expert judgment meetings are mostly seen as a technique used during each of these planning. Whereas when it comes to critical path method, so critical path method is about scheduling. So we will see that technique only mostly in schedule management. Similarly, if I speak about decomposition, we see that in scope management. So likewise, there are specific techniques which are specific to a specific knowledge areas, which we need to identify as we go through the entire framework itself. Similarly, there are common techniques used across the knowledge areas, which if we can identify that common techniques which are used across knowledge areas, it is easy for us to remember and recall those. Similarly, specific techniques for a specific knowledge area. The execution process group involves the processes to direct and manage the project works. The active involvement of the members of the team is seen performing their tasks to execute the project works. Although the project plan is finalized, there may be changes in requirements that come from the stakeholders which are considered for further modifications. So actual involvement of team delivering something, acquiring the team, onboarding the team, onboarding the supplier, identification of them, doing the bidder conference, engaging with stakeholders, all this action should happen. So because the main focus of execution process group in project management perspective is directing and managing project work and managing the project knowledge, which is very, very important. The monitoring and controlling process group refers to tracking and reviewing the progress and performance of the project. The process of monitoring and controlling is continually performed throughout the project lifecycle. So here, I think as I mentioned earlier as well, so it is very essential for us to understand whether project has delivered all those required deliverables or not. Are the deliverables are fulfilling all the features and functionality which are defined during the planning? That validation should happen. Any deviations are found, change requests are raised, and these change requests are approved. Once it is approved, then it comes to integrated change control process through which changes are executed. Then the closing process group involves assembling a report of all procedures throughout the project lifecycle. The closing process group marks the formal closure of the project and completion of its deliverables. Now let us move to the next question. So question number 6, name 10 knowledge areas as mentioned in the PMBOK. So the 10 knowledge areas are project integration management, project scope management, project schedule management, project cost management, project quality management, project resource management, project communications management, project risk management, project procurement management, and project stakeholder management. The project integration management basically focuses on unification and integration of all the project to manage it in an integrated way. A project manager is also called as an integrator, which means a project manager should have an end-to-end visibility of the project. So all the rest of the 9 knowledge areas, the plan which is created as part of all the next 9 knowledge areas, those are consolidated and a comprehensive project management plan will be created in project integration management. So this is the only knowledge area where we see the processes in all the process groups. Whereas in the rest of the knowledge areas, if you see, we don't see any processes in initiating process group except stakeholder management. So integration management has one process. Similarly, stakeholder management has one process in initiation process group. Similarly, in closing process group, only integration management has a process. No other knowledge areas has any processes. So this is the only knowledge area where we find processes in all the process groups, which means it is very important to look at a project in an end-to-end view perspective. A full view of a project should be known to the project management. Only the project manager can become successful in doing the project management. The next knowledge area, project scope management, which focuses on ensuring collecting requirements, defining scope, creating work breakdown structures, and scope baseline. So scope management focuses on ensuring the necessary scope is defined and provided so that during execution projects are delivered accordingly, and monitoring controlling of the scope, the validation of the scope will be based on what is defined in the planning, what is planned as part of scope management. Similar to scope management, in schedule management, once that work breakdown structure is created, it is very essential to understand what it takes in terms of efforts, what it takes in terms of duration, and in what sequence project deliverables are completed, in what sequence activities are done. So schedule management focuses on that. The important technique what we use when it comes to schedule management is critical path method. So in a given project, when we establish a network diagram, so we may see multiple paths from beginning to end of the project. So some paths will be the longest path, which is called as critical path, and that will be the minimum time which is required to complete the project. So schedule management plan provides us a detailed schedule of a project along with sequencing and duration, and at the same time that is considered as a scheduled baseline. Then the cost management. So when we say cost, it is very essential for us to understand it is an outgoing money, outgoing monetary value. So projects incurs cost. When I say project incurs cost, there needs an investment from the organization who is actually doing this project. So the cost needs to be assessed, means an approximation of the cost needs to be done, a budget has to be allocated to the project, and within that budget, the project needs to be completed. It cannot go beyond that. So budget is established, allocation of budget and confirmation of budget happens, and cost perspective monitoring of the project happens based on what is that specific budget it has within that project has to done. That will become a baseline, cost baseline. So to measure the cost and schedule, a technique called earned value management is used, where the terminology like cost performance index, schedule performance index, actual cost, earned value, planned value, budgeted completion, estimate to complete. So these are the terminologies which are used as part of earned value management. Now let us move to quality management, project quality management. So it is very essential for us to ensure all the processes, all the activities, all the templates defined for the project are complied with. That is first thing while doing the project during the project life cycle. Similarly, the deliverables which comes out of a project at the end of the project or at the end of the specific phase or specific stage or a specific milestone. So those deliverables should be according to the specifications defined and agreed upon. So quality management focuses on establishing that quality management approach so that project compliance is maintained at the same time. The results what is delivered is as per the specification what is agreed. The resource management focuses on ensuring all the resources which are required for the project are acquired, configured, installed. If it is a technology resources, if it is a human resources, the necessary induction of the project, the brainstorming required for team to understand what is the project is all about is given, and the necessary skills and capabilities are there with those human resources, and these team members execute the task of the project. So project resource management plays very important role. And now here, when we say scope, when we say schedule, when we say cost, when we quality, in each of this, in other knowledge areas as well, the involvement of each of these resources are essential. So what resources gets into scope management, what resources gets into schedule management, what into cost. Likewise, for each of the knowledge areas, we see various different resources used. When I say in schedule management, effort has to be established. While we establish an effort, it is also required to understand what is the skills and capabilities required. So schedule management definitely work very close with resource management. Similarly, each of these resource comes with cost. So obviously cost management is involved. Then quality, yes. So who is going to do the quality management? So roles and responsibilities needs to be clearly articulated, defined if it is a human resource in resource management. Coming to communication management. So communication, I think, plays very important role. As we know, 90% of the time project manager spends on communications. Many times we see project managers only communicating. Many team members have told me, mentioning that project manager only does communication, project manager only asks questions. Now this impression to the team gets created because they only see what project manager is doing is communication, because team comes in when everything is done, everything is set right. So they see project manager during the monitoring and control mainly, not during initiation, not during planning, not during closure. So many team member comes and goes during the project. They only see project managers reviewing and asking the questions. So because of this, they assume project manager only communicates, project manager only asks questions. But it is very important to ask questions, but there is a perspective and objective behind it, which already project manager is involved and created, like a plan, like signing off, coordinating with stakeholders, understanding requirements, many things has done. In all these areas, communication is involved. So it plays very vital role. So then project risk management, every initiatives organizations takes, every investment organization does, there is a risk. So already the identified risks are evaluated and project is taken up by the organization, which means the business has already understood what is the risk associated with this particular project. Considering that, they have taken up a project. But while doing this project, while doing the project management, lot of risk comes across. Project manager should keep identifying the risk, assessing the risk, analyzing the risks qualitatively and quantitatively depending on the level of impact of the risk. So risk means we already know it is uncertainty of certain occurrence, an outcome. It may be positive or negative. Positive, you can take advantage of that, you exploit it, you enhance it. Whereas negative risk, you mitigate, you respond, you will have a response plans like accepting those or transferring it, sharing it. Transferring means you outsource or you take an insurance. So that is negative risk responses. Next, the project procurement management. The projects would involve certain procurement. So we need to ensure for this project, what is that I am creating myself and using it? What is that I'm going to procure from external suppliers? So whichever we decided in make or buy decisions, whichever we have decided that we need to procure from elsewhere. So procurement management plays a very important role here. So identification of what needs to be procured, what quantity we need to procure, who would be the best supplier, what are the criteria while selecting the suppliers. You may float an RFP, a proposal request will be a respond which will come in. You may float a bid. When you evaluate the best vendor or supplier, you onboard them, then you start issuing a PO formally for them to supply, and then procurement happens. So end-to-end management of the supplier, right from onboarding the suppliers, doing the bidder conference, establishing an agreement, and then engaging with them for reviewing their performance. All these are involved as part of procurement management. The 10th knowledge area, the project stakeholder management. So stakeholder means any entity or individual who involves in the project directly or indirectly, they are impacted. They influence the project and they get influenced. So very importantly, if we think about the stakeholders, we can think about customers, we can think about sponsor, we can think about team members, suppliers who plays very vital role in the success of the project. So engaging with the stakeholders, managing the stakeholders plays very important roles. And if every 9 knowledge areas there is something which you've done right, but something wrong done with the stakeholder management, entire project may go for toss. So one needs to be very careful understanding the dynamics associated with each of these 10 knowledge areas and then dealt with them accordingly. And integration management would integrate all of this as I mentioned earlier, so that end-to-end visibility of the project can be seen. So that is about 10 knowledge areas mentioned in PMBOK. The next question, question number 7. Why is the project planning considered as the most significant step in project lifecycle? The project planning is more significant. This will provide all the baseline plans, like as we saw in the previous question, scope baseline, cost baseline, schedule baseline. So all the baselines required, which will be referred, right? Each of the baselines are considered. Based on these baselines, project needs to be executed. Now, any deviations to this baseline plans need to have a formal approval for necessary corrections. So already we know there are 9 types of subsidiary plans for all the 9 knowledge areas: scope, schedule, cost, quality, resource, risk, procurement, communication, and stakeholder. These are the 9 knowledge areas which will have a subsidiary plans which will get integrated in integration management. So without having a clear plan, clear directions, so execution will not have any specific direction to take. So you cannot measure the deliverables. So what to do, when to do, who will do, all these are defined as part of the planning, and that plays a very important thing. So if you look at the entire framework of PMP, most of the processes out of 49 processes we can see in planning process group. Almost like 24 processes out of 49. 50% of the processes almost can be seen in planning process group, which itself indicates how important the planning process group and planning activity for a project. So why the project plan is considered most significant? Let us look at few more points. So one is it provides visibility in terms of what project is all about, what is that we are going to deliver, and what kind of results are we going to create, what is that we are aiming for. We'll get a better visibility. So next, increases employee satisfaction because there is no confusion. Each team member understand what needs to be delivered and what is the performance of the team members, how it is measured is also visible, and that is happening in reality because you cannot deviate on what is being planned. So that should happen in actual execution as well. So obviously employees are not confused now, the team members are not confused, they're delivering it according to what is planned, and it is easy for them also because it is a better visibility and they have a clarity about it. Next is quality assurance and control. So as we know, quality management is one of the knowledge areas. So doing timely audits, testing all the deliverables, compliance checks. So all these ensures the approach what we have selected, covering all of this ensures the project is delivered as we planned. Then reduces project risk because all the risks are identified. We have understood what are the risks are, and we keep identifying the risk and analyzing those. And when we say risk, there is one unique nature of risk. Where exactly the risk occurs, accordingly the impact to the projects will be there. For example, when I start a project, if there is a risk associated with human resources which I have not even onboarded, non-availability of a specific resource, very less impact. But when I am onboarded a resource and then project execution is happening and execution is at peak, now what happens? It is quite obvious. Risk impact will be higher compared to the risk which would have occurred in the beginning of the project. So meaning as we progress in the life cycle of a project, the identified risk will have an impact differently at the different parts of the life cycle, depending on the nature of the risk and state of the project. So since it is visible to us, we have a risk management knowledge area which emphasizes on doing all of this. So since we are doing it, it will become visible for us to have an effective risk management. So next question, when is stakeholder analysis performed? Already we know stakeholder means an entity or individuals who involve directly or indirectly, who get influenced, who will get impacted, are all called as stakeholders. Understanding who are those stakeholders who are basically straight in terms of having impact or impacted. So we need to identify them and manage them. We may have a stakeholder like competition to our organization, but do we really manage them? Not required. We may require to be sensitive. What competition is doing? Is this project is unique so that the details of this project, the information on about this project is not leaked to the competition, is not shared with competition. In that sensitivity, you need to ensure monitoring it. You need not manage the competition here, but you need to monitor what is happening relating to competition. Similarly, stakeholder like team member. So you are required to manage them. You cannot just keep monitoring. You need to manage them so that there can be the results which is required to be created has created. Now next is customer. If you say, you need to engage with them. You need to discuss with them. You need to review with them. That customer is getting what customer has asked for, right? So stakeholder may be anyone who is affected because of project. Stakeholder analysis plays an important role to identify and analyze their needs, right? So the analysis is generally performed whenever there is a need of any clarifications over quantitative and qualitative data. The clarification helps in understanding the interest of the stakeholders, which plays a vital role in the success of the project, as I mentioned earlier. So next question for us, what is the role of stakeholder in project management? So stakeholder, as we know, refers to any organization or entity that can have any positive or negative effect due to project. Because their interests are most important, their positive impact need to be kept in mind, while any negative impact need to minimized while planning for executing any activity during the project. So it is very important to understand the stakeholder perspective view. Next question, what are some essential features to be kept in mind while choosing a project management tool? So project management tools basically assist the project manager and the project team in doing the project effectively. And I think efficient way of doing project is also ensured because many processes are automated and the transaction will become easier, the collaboration become easier, creation of dashboards and reports which will provide the visibility of the performance of the project. So let us look at some of the essential features required by project management tools. So risk management. Just now we discussed about risk management and its importance. If a project management tool assists while identifying and managing a risk, because when we identify risk, we update those in a risk register. So if tool has an established risk register where we can keep inputting this particular risks and keep alerting the specific details about, if we have a frequency of analyzing the risk repeatedly, the identified risk, so informing us, reminding us, telling that this risk calendar is like this, you may require to analyze those. That will help in making it better, right? Risk assessment as well as updates in terms of managing the risk. Or also lessons learned. Earlier, some risks which are of similar kind which are identified are managed like this. So lessons learned, recalling those. Coming to resource management. So tool can able to help us in terms of calculating the expenditures and distribute them among the tasks, so that it is helpful in terms of better management of resources as well as the cost associated with that. Then dependencies, milestones and critical path. So most of the project management tools what we have come across, minimum they will have this capability, establishing a Gantt chart, helping in terms of establishing a network diagram, which will provide us a visibility in terms of what is that the project flow would be, how the project flow would go on, and how the project is going to complete. What are the activities dependent on each other? So what are the relationship between each of the tasks? What are the milestone deliverables? Duration of the project? What are those activities happening in parallel? So visually, graphical representation it would give. So it should also minimize, simplify. The tool should have that capability. It should also have a minimal interfaces or ease of doing things like drag and drop interfaces. So ease functionalities, maintaining smooth maintenance and support, which it can help us in terms of doing a project management better. So basically tools helps us in terms of assisting to have efficient and effective project management. So all the information should be handy so that it is there with us always. So third party integration, like a tool must be able to help us in terms of collaborating with other tools, which would help us in sharing information. It would help us in terms of providing better visibility. Any other tools which are there in the organization. If I am speaking about documentation, records sharing, or any of the reports or creation of the dashboards, these are the capabilities which a tool can have, and at the same time, this can have an interface with other tools like Dropbox, Google Drive, which will help in have a better visibility and better collaboration. So agile workflow system, when we say the functions, features, functionality of this particular tool should help us becoming agile. So moving faster means quick inputs and feedbacks given, because when we say agile, we are moving faster. When we're moving faster, there should be quick feedbacks which should be coming back so that necessary corrections can be made quickly. So to do this, if tool can assist us in providing those details of increased flexibility and transparency, so that would help in becoming more productive. Then dashboards to manage projects, dashboards which will provide what is complete, what is not complete, what is the status of the project, how is the performance. So this would help in having a quick visibility into the performance of the project and also the progress of the project to track them. So that what is complete, what is not complete, and how it is progressing. Is it ahead of schedule, behind schedule? Is it within budget or over budget? The visibility to that will always help in terms of getting better project management done. Then customizable workflows. So the tool should be able to adapt to the unique process to track work progression. So then if it provides a mobile application integration, so better to have team to know what is the status of it anytime, anywhere, so that ease of moving forward faster in the project management and making decisions will become easier. Because always having right information in right time with the right people is very essential, so that decision making can be more informed and quicker. Then collaborate easily. The tool should enable user to share documents, files, status, timelines and tasks with ease and quickly with many people. Then delegating tasks easily. It should be able to delegate tasks, assign roles and then ensure they have access to the right information. So that's all about tools. Now we'll move to the next question. So what do you think is the difference between projects, programs and portfolio? So this looks like a very generic question which is asked by any individuals during their interview. But even though this question doesn't focus on project in specific, it is very essential for project manager to understand the difference between these three so that whom to ask for what will be known to the project manager. So the definition of project is like a temporary endeavor. It's an activity that is used to create a unique product, service or results. We saw that, we understood already. Whereas program is a collection of related projects which are managed as group to achieve better effectiveness and efficiency. So which you don't get when you manage a project individually, if you group it and manage, you can share resources, you can optimize the resources and cost, you can standardize, that you can achieve through program management. So portfolio management is again a group of projects and programs which may be related, unrelated, but strategic objective, accomplishing strategic objectives of the organization is very essential. So all these projects and programs and other related works are grouped together with a common strategic objective of organization. So the project manager versus program manager versus portfolio managers, what do they do? So project manager expects change and implements processes to manage and control the project in terms of accomplishing the project objective. Whereas program manager expects changes from inside and outside the program to provide strategic benefits, as I mentioned earlier, like standardization, optimization. So portfolio manager monitors changes in the overall context of the strategic plan of the organization. Is this projects or programs or whatever we do in this organization, are they aligned to strategic objectives? Are they helping to accomplish the strategic objectives? So project managers manages and coordinate the team to ensure success, whereas program manager manages the program staff and the project manager providing leadership and vision. The portfolio manager may coordinate or manage the portfolio management staff. Then monitoring part of it, project manager monitors and controls tasks to produce the products, results or services of the project, whereas program manager monitors the progress of components to lead the program to success. Portfolio manager manages the aggregated portfolio performance and value indicators. So planning part of it, project manager develops, monitors and controls project plans throughout the project lifecycle, whereas program manager develops the program plan and performs high level planning to guide component level planning, whereas portfolio managers perform plannings at a portfolio level. The scope, the project manager will develop, monitor and control throughout the life cycle of the project, whereas program manager has a program which has a wider scope aimed at meeting the benefits and goals of the organization, whereas portfolio has a scope that changes with change in the strategic plan and goals of the organization. So why the strategic goals or plans would change, the directions would change? That has various different reasons, maybe a business scenario, market conditions, etc. The success of the project is based on time taken to finish the project, the budget within which it is completed, the scope, the customer satisfaction, the quality defines the success. Whereas the program success is measured in terms of benefits it delivered as it expected from the program. Then the portfolio success is the aggregated performance of all its components, programs and projects. Question number 12. What are the skills a project manager must possess? Typically, a project manager would require to have effective communication skills. So communication skills help in terms of establishing better relationship because it plays a vital role there. What do we communicate? When do we communicate? How do we communicate matters, because it's not about just verbal communication or written communication. There is non-verbal communication through body languages, through expressions, which individuals do the communication. So it is very essential to have a right method and right approach towards communication. So the project manager should possess that skill. Good leadership skills. So many a times the term leadership is confused with the position of a leader. No, so leadership is basically a capability of an individual. So if a specific individual having that capability can influence people, can inspire, can motivate. Project manager having a leadership skills, it's very essential. It is a must required skill. Only then project manager can make the people listen to him. People will respect him because the behavior will be guided through that capability. Strong team management skill, which requires an engagement, which requires a communication and leadership skills work very closely with this team management skills. So understanding the team dynamics, ensuring the right education, right skilled individuals are in place and they're monitored and managed, it is very important. So there should be a little bit of mentoring which needs to be done to the people regularly so that team gets what is expected out of them and they do accordingly. Then effective negotiation skills, a lot of scenarios which comes in terms of negotiating in various different scenarios. Negotiate to ensure things are being in place or in the interest of both the parties involved in the negotiation. It is very important to involve and make a right discussion, right set of discussion so that stakeholders are benefited. Now, who are these roles we are speaking about who would involve in negotiation? We can think of customers while establishing an agreement. We can think of teams while having some conflict resolutions, which you take, team will have a conflict you may require to resolve. So suppliers related issues which needs to be resolved. So negotiation is very important, but always negotiations would be in the interest of both the involved parties. Then critical thinking. So critical thinking in the sense not just seeing what is there, it's about how to set it right, how to take it forward in the right direction. So what could cause, visualizing things is very important. Risk management skills, it's quite obvious. The most ignored area which I have seen throughout is the risk management. So I don't know what is the reason risk is ignored. Many of the projects what I have seen, almost like 80 to 85%, people don't even look at the risks. So it is very essential to look at the risk and manage the risk. Only then project can become successful. So question 13, what will be involved in project scope management? So we already know project scope means it involves both project scope as well as product scope. Now, scope management basically ensures project includes all those necessary things to be done in terms of activities, in terms of processes, in terms of resources, so that project objectives can be accomplished. So this particular process, project scope management, describes the project scope and documents how it will be designed, validated and controlled throughout the project lifecycle. So it collects requirement. So collect requirement process engages with stakeholders, discusses with them to understand what is their requirement, collect the requirements, document the requirements and establish requirement management plan. Then based on this requirement established, scope has to be defined, means the detailed description of the project and product has to be developed and a list has to be created that includes all the requirements. Then creating the WBS, work breakdown structure. Once the scope is defined, so now the decomposition of that scope definition what is given has to be taken into the lowest possible level. It has to be like logically further it cannot be subdivided, right? So decomposition basically helps in terms of breaking down those ultimate deliverable into multiple lower level parts. For example, if I consider a car, I can think about two broad categories like exteriors and interiors. Now in exteriors, I can think of a body of the car, the rear view mirror, the wheel, the bonnet, the glass. So I can just decompose like this. Now until I decompose to the mirror, further I cannot decompose. In the mirror, what are all the things we can think of? Mirror cap, mirror glass, mirror mount. So further can I subdivide this? No. So each of the components involved in all the perspective, in the car perspective, I broadly initially decomposed it to the level interior exteriors, and further down the line we took to the next level of components. Further down in the line we again decomposed it. Now at the lowest level we actually look at the effort estimation, activity, resource required, all these we look at and we will do bottom up to consolidate to see what is the scope. So which will help us in becoming scope baseline. So validate scope is a process in monitoring and controlling. which involves reviewing the deliverables with the customer or sponsor to ensure successful completion and formal acceptance of the deliverables. So formal acceptance is the key requirement when we validate the scope. If it is not according to the plan, that is rejected and it is sent back for change and necessary corrections. Then control scope. So in this process, the status of the project and product scope is monitored. Changes to the scope baseline, which is actually defined as part of the planning. If anything is seen in terms of deviation, that needs to be corrected. The change request would be raised. Then next question, tell us about some project management tools. So some of the most common and popular management tools which I have come across are listed here, like Plutio, Basecamp, Teamwork Projects, Zoho Projects, Asana, Jira Software, Trello. I think details of this you may require to go to individual tool sections and then review those. Better if you can able to create a comparison sheet, always helps in terms of understanding what is that features functionality each of these tool has. So one more tool which is not mentioned here is Microsoft Project. So which is also another popular tool which is used. And similarly, I can mention like Primavera. So each of these has its own advantages, disadvantages. So you may require to list out what do you exactly want in terms of when you take up a tool for project management and what each of this tool has. If you can able to create a comparison sheet, that would help you in terms of selecting the right tool for your organization and projects. Question number 15. What is the significance of monitoring and controlling in the project lifecycle? So as we know, monitoring and controlling is a process group. So this involves tracking the project's performance alongside the planned project management activities. This also focuses on comparing actual and planned performance. So we have defined that in the planning. So what needs to be accomplished, how it has to be accomplished, what templates are to be used, what needs to be delivered. We have defined it in planning. So that needs to be compared with actual thing what is created and what is that, how are we doing this currently, how it is done, is it complied with. Assessing performance to determine any corrective actions are identified, their status reported and appropriate responses to risks are taken. So ensuring an accurate information base, providing information to support status reporting, measuring progress and forecasting, adding forecasts to update cost and current schedule information, making sure approved changes are being implemented. Upon successfully performing monitoring and control, the processes within monitoring and controlling process group. So the possible outcomes would be like the change request, work performance reports, update to project management plan and project documents. Maybe if everything is okay, well, for example, validate scope, which comes under this process group. So if when we validate if everything is okay as per the plan, then it is accepted deliverable, which will move towards the closure. If it is not, obviously it leads towards change request. So question number 16 is, what's the key difference in the roles of the project and program manager? So project manager is basically focuses on projects and its success of the project, as we know already. Whereas program manager looks at all those projects which fall under the program are managed together and taken forward in the required direction. So program manager plans program level activities and the schedule of projects. So program managers defines terms of reference for projects. They starts, stops and monitor progress of constituent projects, manages program level risks and issues. They set up policies and procedures for projects. They resolve conflicts. They determine the program standards. Similarly, project manager focuses on planning a project based on dependencies and interfaces given by the project manager. So works within the defined TAR, terms of references given for the projects, runs the project, reports to program manager, manages project risks and issues and escalates them to program manager if required, if at all a project is part of a program. If it is not, then that escalation goes to sponsor. So project manager runs projects according to the policies and procedures, uses resources assigned to project manager and delivers the products that satisfy the requirements. Question number 17. What are the types of risks involved in the project? So we know that one of the knowledge areas in the project management is risk management. It is very essential for us to identify risk, assess and analyze risk, and have the risk response plans. So while doing it, it is also very important for us to understand categorizing the risks depending on where exactly what category this risk falls into, depending on the impacts. For example, some of the list which is given, common types of risk, the risk categories you can think of. It may be related to cost, schedule, performance, technology or technical, strategic, legal, market risk, risk related to external hazards, and it goes on. So these are the minimum set of list which we can think of in any project, the kind of risk are associated with which area. So when I say cost associated risk, it's all about monetary related, where we invest, where we actually monitor that budget, involve that budget, incur that cost related to that. Schedule in terms of doing it faster, doing it slower, doing it as per the plan. So various different details which are associated with the schedule. Likewise, each of these types what we have mentioned will have a risk accordingly associated with them. So question number 18, what is the difference between a risk and a issue in context of project management? So when we say risk is always we look at in the future. So it's an uncertainty of outcome when we say we are looking at the future. It may be next moment in the future, but it is risk which is focused on the future. So risks may be positive or negative. Any risk we identify may have positive or negative impact. Whereas risk response will be in accordance with the risk response planning, and these are documented in risk register. So issue is always the one which we have in front of us to manage. So it is focused on present, always negative, it will have negative impacts. So response will be in accordance to the issue workaround provided, and these are documented in the issue register. So next question, question number 19, how does project scheduling help in project execution? Project scheduling makes sure there is a sequence of how all the tasks will be performed. After the resources are estimated and plan is made, the schedule plays a very important role, because when to do, when it is planned, it is very essential to do accordingly. So providing the sequence, what activity has to be done in what sequence, it's also very important. So this must be carried out first, and what should follow needs to be clearly understood. The optimized scheduling of tasks provides the best possible output with the allocated resources, and that has to be done within the scheduled time, within the deadline. Question number 20, what do you understand by quality control? Now, quality control refers to activities needed to evaluate if the project meets all the requirements with respect to the scope of the project planning. Now, when we say a control, we should think about the output of a project, the deliverable. It has a specifications. So relating to that specifications, the features, functionalities, what needs to be delivered, is it delivered accordingly? So project managers defines the standard that the project must fulfill to be successful. Quality control includes validating the deliverables, satisfying the requirements of the stakeholders, identifying the cause of poor project quality, and taking necessary actions to eliminate problems. Right? Question number 21. Explain the forming in team dynamics. Basically, when we say team dynamics, it involves various different stages like forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So forming happens first. Now, this happens when the team first meets each other. So when they meet each other, they get introduced to each other and get to know their backgrounds, experience, and areas of expertise. The team members discuss about the project, discuss the project objectives, and beginning to think their role in the project. They're beginning to understand. They know what is this project is all about. So in detail, what is this project is all about will be understood by them in storming, which is the next stage in the team dynamics. Question number 22. So what is work breakdown structure and how does it affect the work estimates of tasks or activities? Work breakdown structure is a hierarchical replica of all the work in the project. For example, if I take up a specific object, a specific products or services which we are bringing out as a result. For example, if I take a car, so how will I visualize various different parts of the car? It's very difficult in one go. In execution perspective, in creation perspective, we may require to know every parts of it in detail. So work breakdown structure is established using decomposition as a technique, which means, for example, if I take car as an example, car has a whole when you visualize. Broadly, I would classify that into, decompose it to the first level like exteriors and interiors. After exteriors, I can further decompose the exterior part of it. Similarly, after interiors, I will decompose it further. In exteriors, what are the things I can think of? Like exteriors in terms of glass, in terms of body, in terms of tires, in terms of wheel, bonnet, mirror, rear view mirror, which is outside. So likewise, I will have various different decompositions level. That is the second level of decomposition. Next, third level of decomposition I can go. In each of these parts, what I said, I can further elaborate those. If I take the rear view mirror as an example, so I can think about mirror cap, I can think about mirror glass, I can think about mirror mount. So these are the various different decomposed levels. below mirror. Similarly, if I come to interiors, we can think about entertainment system, we can think about seats, we can think about AC, right? So we can think about anything else like dashboards. Now, each of these components further I can decompose. So the idea of decomposing is I am going to understand what are the various product parts are involved to make a bigger product as a whole. So once I accomplished that, I will have a details at each of these levels and consolidate upwards. As shown in the picture here, the first level, task 1, task 2, task 3. Before I assign these tasks, I will have the product breakdown structure first. And from bottom level, I start adding up the activities, effort estimation, and then I keep consolidating upwards. Similarly, I will put the cost components to it. I will estimate the cost involved, the one which is required. And then I go upwards and consolidate. So WBS helps in organizing the work in a manageable sections. So this would help in establishing additional details, which would help in defining tasks, helping in estimation, helps in, when I say estimation, it is not just specific estimation, it's about cost estimation, schedule estimation, effort estimation, and then this will also help us in terms of sequencing further. So work breakdown structure will also have something called WBS dictionary, which gives a description of all the WBS elements. Next question, question number 23. What is meant by the term SPI? Now, SPI refers to Schedule Performance Index. So, Schedule Performance Index is a measure of schedule efficiency expressed as a ratio of earned value to the planned value. So, when I say earned value is the actual work which is completed. The value, the budgeted value for the actual work which is completed. And planned value is the budgeted value of the work which is supposed to be accomplished as per the plan. Now this will help us in understanding how the project is progressing in schedule perspective. If SPI is lesser than 1 means it is behind schedule. SPI is more than 1, it is ahead of schedule. If SPI is 1, it is as per the plan. Schedule is as per the plan. Question number 24. What is the significance of agile project management? So when we say agile, the terminology itself refers to quick response, flexible, moving faster. So while we do agile project management, it is very essential to look at the various dynamics around. So it may be a quick response what you need to give, right? So predominantly agile methodologies are today adopted in various types of industries. So currently we see more and more in IT and software industry, then product development, marketing campaigns, even in constructing companies. Some of the reasons that encourage industries to take up agile methodologies are high product quality, high customer satisfaction, reduced risk, better and faster ROI. Now let us look at the question number 25. What is the significance of agile project management? So the agile project management frameworks involves continuous planning and testing. So there are various different frameworks, each of them having their own unique qualities. So it is very essential for us to understand what are those various different agile frameworks and how they are going to contribute to become agile. So the most popular agile frameworks, some thoughts which actually depicts and supports organization to become agile are, one of that is Kanban framework. So Kanban framework is used to implement agile software development and requires real-time communication. So work items are represented on a Kanban board, allowing team members to see the state of each work at any time. So this means on the board, so work in progress, work which has to be done and who has to do it, all these details are captured in the Kanban board. Now very important point here is when these are captured, it's very essential to understand it is a visual board. So when it is a visual board, it's quite obvious. Anyone who has actually have a task against them, they don't hesitate. They need to complete it. It forces them. Since it is a visualized system, it works on their consciousness. So it is also called as pull system. So because people pull the work from that list, whatever is given, and then accomplish it. So this will also help in tracking the progression of a project, how it is progressing. So how the project is progressing, how the tasks are being completed, how quickly they are completed. So it is easily visible and that makes things to move smoother and faster. So Scrum framework. So Scrum framework helps in dealing with complex problems and making it possible to deliver high quality products. At the same time, it helps in managing complex advanced work with little emphasis on software development. So it uses the terminologies like sprint, product backlog, sprint backlog, daily scrum, retrospective meeting. So three roles predominantly we come across, that is product owner, Scrum Master, and then self-organizing team. So next framework is hybrid framework, which you can think of. So it is the combination of agile methods with non-agile methods. Hybrid can handle requirement changes and it can deliver products in stages. So in hybrid model, planning is done using a waterfall approach, while the agile approach handles execution and delivery. So lean framework. So the lean framework works on the concept of maximizing customer value with fewer resources and zero waste. Hence, lean focuses on the flow of products and services instead of focusing on separate technologies. Companies can act upon with changing customer needs and requirements. So very important points to observe here. Zero waste means in the flow, the way the processes are connected to each other, in that flow, we should identify what are those which acts as a bottlenecks resulting in waste. So we should eliminate such bottlenecks. So these elimination of bottlenecks helps in reduction of waste at the same time increasing the value to the customers. So in the downstream from the point where bottleneck you have, the entire capacity will get limited to the downstream capacity I'm speaking about will get limited to the bottleneck where that particular issue exists. Right, that needs to be resolved. Elimination of waste should happen. So waste is a result of anything which is a non-value adding activity. Right, so we need to identify as per the lean perspective. So the defects are not allowed to move forward to the downstream. That is the whole idea behind it. So next question 26. Why does a project manager need to be proactive? Okay, so we always have this question coming around, proactiveness versus reactiveness. When should we be proactive? When should we be reactive? That we need to understand. Now, more proactive in nature, the project manager or any manager who is more proactive will basically visualize the future. So they act today so that tomorrow something negative impact will not happen. So a proactive project manager is actively able to determine the several communication needs of the stakeholders. So a proactive project manager is able to identify the risks in the early stage of the project. It is very essential. So what is that going to happen in future? That needs to be visualized, act today so that occurrences can be handled better or eliminated. Question number 27. What does a critical path method imply? So firstly, let us understand what is critical path means. So critical path is basically a longest path in a given project network diagram. So that would be the minimum time required for a project to complete. So any delay in any of the activities or tasks in critical path delays the project duration. So in critical path method, so it is a crucial tool for determining the progress of the project to ensure that project is on schedule. So as I mentioned, any delay in any of the activities or tasks in the critical path delays the project itself. So monitoring on these activities in a critical path will become more important so that project can happen as per the plan, as per the date what is given. So critical path method helps in determining the essential or critical path by finding out the longest stretch of dependent tasks, so that each dependencies, each flow from left to right, from beginning to end has to be visualized and monitored very closely so that project finish date is not delayed. It happens according to the plan. So next question, defined planned value, actual cost and earned value. So when we say planned value is the approved value of the work that needs to be completed within a given period. It serves as a baseline and needs to be calculated before work can be started. It is also known as budgeted cost of work schedule. So formula to calculate planned value is planned percentage of work completed into project budget. Assume your project budget is 10,000, whatsoever the currency is. Let us assume 10,000 is my project budget. So my project duration is 5 months. Each month I have a plan to complete the work worth of 2,000. So which means that 2,000 is my planned value. The work which is supposed to be accomplished within the end of that first month is work worth of 2,000. So if I do the work which is lesser than work worth of maybe lesser than 2,000, I am behind schedule. If I complete the work worth more than 2,000, then I am ahead of schedule. So planned value will become that reference, the 2,000 what I mentioned as a planned value. The work worth of 2,000 I am supposed to complete before the end of the month 1. If I say any work which is completed according to the budgeted value, I will make this planned value as a reference to decide whether I am behind schedule or ahead of schedule. Actual cost. Actual cost refer to the value of total expenses that you have incurred for the work done till date. For example, in the previous discussion relating to the planned value, at the end of month 1, the planned value was 2000. So that is the work worth which we're supposed to complete. Now let us assume we have completed a work where the work worth relating to that actual work completed is around 1800. Means I'm behind schedule for sure. But at the same time, to complete the work worth of 1800, how much I incurred actually? So if I have incurred actual cost also 1800, then cost wise I'm according to the plan, but behind schedule because I've only completed the work worth of 1800 against the work worth of 2000, which is the planned value. I'm behind schedule. But to complete it, the actual cost I incurred is 1800, so cost wise I'm according to the plan. If my actual cost is lesser than 1800, then I'm doing very good in cost perspective. If my actual cost is more than 1800, then I'm using more money, means over budget. So actual cost helps us in relating to planned value to define whether cost wise how am I doing. So it is also known as actual cost of work performed. So this will be used to calculate cost variance and cost performance index. Earned value. Earned value represents the value produced by a project. It is also known as budgeted cost of work performed. In our example, the earned value is 1800, meaning I have completed the work worth of 1800. That is the earned value, which says behind schedule. When I compare earned value with the planned value, it will tell me whether I am behind schedule, ahead of schedule, or according to the plan. Now for this earned value of 1800, if I incur the actual cost of 1800, then cost wise I'm doing good. If my actual cost is lesser than earned value, then cost wise I'm very good, right? If I incur more than earned value, for example, to complete the work worth of 1800, I incur the cost of 2000, then I'm not doing good, I'm over budget. So the combination of earned value and planned value helps us to know the schedule perspective whether project is behind or ahead or according to the plan, schedule perspective, whereas the combination of earned value and actual cost helps us to understand whether project is within the budget, over budget, or according to the plan. Question number 29. What is the purpose of procurement management plan? The procurement management plan defines the procurement requirements and how it can be managed from developing a procurement documentation through to contract closure. The plan identifies and defines the items that need to be procured, the contracts that need to be used for supporting the project, how the contract is approved, and criteria for decisions to be made has to be looked at. The plan also includes other items including considerations for procurement risks and procurement risk management, deciding how cost needs to be determined, standard procurement documentation usage, and constraints to procurement. Question number 30. When is post-mortem analysis performed in the project management? A post-mortem in a project or project retrospective refers to process that's performed at the conclusion of the phase for a multi-stage project. This aims to help identify process improvements that can prevent future risks and to ensure best practices are repeated. Postmortems involve a combination of quantitative and qualitative data. It also includes qualitative data like end user, stakeholder, and team satisfaction, potential for reuse, and the quality of end deliverable that is perceived. Question number 31. What is the purpose of risk register? A risk register is basically a tool that is used to document risks and the actions to handle each of those risks. The management of risk is an ongoing process that has the project team raising risks with the risk manager or a project manager who then logs the risks and determines an appropriate course of action to handle the risk. The risk register also needs to be reviewed regularly to ensure the appropriate actions are performed. It could be reviewed in every project team meeting or at the end of each phase of the project life cycle. Question number 32. When do we use a Gantt chart? So as we are discussing about critical paths, network diagram, critical path method. So by using a project tools, we first establish a Gantt chart. So Gantt chart is basically a visual view of tasks scheduled over a period. A Gantt chart is useful for outlining all the tasks involved in the project along with their order shown against the time scales. So since it gives the pictorial representation, it helps us in understanding what tasks will be completed after which tasks and how the dependencies of each task can be easily understood. It provides an overview of a project, its associated tasks, and then when they need to be finished are clearly understood. A Gantt chart is helpful because it provides a detailed view of all tasks and ensures one can create a workable schedule and the right people are assigned to right task. It can be used to determine the practical aspect of the project. It enables to keep the team and sponsors informed about the progress of the project. Question number 33. What is the significance of the critical path method? So critical path method or CPM is a tool that is used to schedule project activities. So CPM is used to create a model that includes tasks required to complete the project, dependencies between the tasks, the durations required to complete an activity. The critical path is the longest path in all the available paths in the project, and the duration of the critical path will be the minimum time required by the project to complete. Question number 34. What are some tools required for arriving at improvement in processes? So process improvement comprises a set of actions implemented by a company to enhance performance, cost reduction, increasing profits, etc. So some of the tools some organization can use to implement a successful process improvement strategy can be comparing and baselining a project. So with this, we can get an overview of how the process is performing in comparison with other similar processes. Flow charting, which helps them segregating the processes, activities, events, etc. Value stream mapping, it helps clearly understand the workflow and helps organizations identify waste. Cause and effect analysis, these help organizations determine the root cause of any problem. Hypothesis testing, which helps in testing to determine whether a hypothesis would be favorable to the organization or not. Question 35. How do you work with three-point estimation method? So the three-point estimation method is also called as PERT estimation, which is a tool that can be used to help increase the accuracy of cost and time estimates. There are three parts with the different estimates, that is optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely. The optimistic estimate is the amount of time required to complete the project, assuming everything in the project goes according to the plan. Pessimistic estimation is the estimation considering the worst case scenario and is an estimation given in everything goes wrong. That is the assumption. So most likely estimation, so this is most likely to happen and falls under the pessimistic and optimistic estimates. It falls in between that, pessimistic and optimistic. So the formula to calculate three-point estimate would be pessimistic plus optimistic plus 4 most likely divided by 6 will provide the three-point estimation. What do you understand by the term RAID? RAID log is a project management tool that tracks risks, actions, issues, and decisions. It provides a simple way to organize the information. So the main advantages of RAID log is to enable you to think in an organized and strategic way. The RAID log has all the questions that could be asked by stakeholders. The data is easily accessible and acts as a measure for how well the plans are being carried out. The RAID logs makes the process of decision making more consistent. It provides a place where all decisions made can be compared. Question number 37. What are some techniques used for defining scope? So here are some tools and techniques to define scope, that is expert judgment, which requires to bring in experts on domain, product analysis, which needs to break down the final deliverable into smaller components to ensure all the steps are being taken. Alternative generation. So in alternative generation, it's need to brainstorm for the best and most effective way to create it for the product. Facilitated workshops, which allow different people with different ideas to find common ground for a project. Question number 38. What is waterfall model? Waterfall model is a project management approach in which a project is completed in several phases. A big plan is executed linearly, expecting there would not be any changes in the plan. Waterfall model is in contrast to agile model does not respond well to frequent changes. Any changes which comes in between while following the waterfall methodologies, making that changes will be difficult and bit complex. Question 39. On what basis would you decide if a particular risk should be avoided or mitigated? The risks which are having high impact negative to the business are avoided by the organizations usually. So avoiding is the first decision what organization makes for sure. But however, there may be some discussions which are made before the decision of being made relating to avoiding that risk. Instead, having some workaround for that risk or making certain arrangement so that impact of the risk can be reduced or bringing down the probability of occurrence of the risks. Considering something which will have higher negative impact, they may not be worthwhile to take up. So in that case, I think avoiding is the best decision. Once the organizations consider to take up after identifying and analyzing the risks, then organization would work on risk response plan for all the risks which are identified. So what is EVM? The earned value management. So earned value management is a project management technique that is used to measure the project progress. If you recall the terminologies like earned value, planned value, actual cost, schedule performance index, cost performance index, these are the terminologies which comes as part of earned value management. It calculates the project performance and progress by combining constraints like time, scope and costs. So question 41. What is the difference in product life cycle and project life cycle? So project life cycle refers to the sequence of stages or phases the project undergoes from the time it is initiated till it is closed. So this project life cycle involves 5 process groups, which is initiating process group, planning process group, executing process group, monitoring and controlling process group, closure process group, which should be there throughout the project life cycle along with the 10 knowledge areas and 49 processes. Product life cycle includes all that phases that define the growth of a product. So creation of the product till expiry of the product. So within the product life cycle, we may have multiple project life cycles. So one project life cycle for introduction of product, one project life cycle for modifying or updating the existing product, one project life cycle may be for improvement, one project life cycle may be for removing the product from the production. So in product life cycle, there are 4 phases, that is market introduction, market growth, market maturity, and decline and saturation stage. Question 42. Define capability maturity model. So capability maturity model is an approach to improve or refine development process in an organization. So it is an elaborated structure of elements that helps in defining the features of an effective process. Next question 43. What do you know about triple constraint, the triangle in project management? So basically the triple constraint refers to scope, schedule and cost, right? So it helps in actually analyzing the project status, the way project is progressing, and these are the 3 critical considerations mainly which needs to be made. So further to these triple constraints, scope, time and cost, quality, resource and risks are also considered as a constraints. So any change in any of the constraints would have an impact on other constraints. Question 44. What is a decision support system? Decision support system is an information system used in decision-making activities in an organization or a business. It analyzes data sets and extracts information that may be used to solve complex problems and take decisions. How many types of DSS are there? So there are several types of DSS, that is data driven, model driven, knowledge driven and document driven. Question 46. What are some general metrics that are used to calculate if a project is progressing on track? So if a project is progressing on track, it is very essential to consider the productivity, which means units of input, units of output, actual cost, that is total cost per time period to time period, cost variance, which refers to budgeted cost of work versus actual cost of work, schedule variance, which is the difference between budgeted cost of work performed and budget cost of work scheduled, cost performance index, which is earned value to actual cost. Question 47. What is meant by a milestone in a project? A project milestone provides a way to observe, measure and monitor the performance progress of the project. These represents intermediate stages that needs to be fulfilled before getting to the final objective or goal. Milestones can provide a basis on which progress can be monitored. They can also prove for explanation while reporting on project status. It can be used to provide course corrections and learning experiences. It can also be used to maintain accountability and motivate staff. Question 48. How can you estimate the activity time of a project? The activity time or duration refers to the process of evaluating the number of work periods required to finish individual activities with the resources available. These help Achieve the project objectives on set dates and delivery schedules decided by project management team and key stakeholders. Here are some tools and techniques to calculate activity durations. So those are expert judgment, analogous estimation, PERT method, 3-point estimates, parametric estimating, alternative analysis, published estimating data, vendor bid analysis, etc. Question 49. What do you think about CSF, critical success factor, in a project management? So CSF or critical success factor are found in the project management plan and can define what can be defined as success for the project. Some characteristics of critical success factor involve, for example, time. Was the project completed within the given time period? Cost. Did it stay within the budgeted cost? Quality. Did it meet the specification level? Stakeholder. Was the result accepted by the end user? Project changes. Were scope changes are minimal and are agreed upon? Performing organization. Did it affect the corporate culture? Commitment is required from team members, clients, top management, and all stakeholders, which is very essential, and it is one of the main critical success factors. Goals must be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. There must be process for quick identification and resolution of conflict. Good project leadership is to be established. Risk management policies have to be established. There must be proper project planning that needs to be done. Then best practices need to be applied at all stages. Proper communications must take place to ensure information is passed across. Question number 50. What do you understand by the term SOW? So SOW or statement of work is a document that includes and defines each aspects of the project. It is a foundation for the project plan. So before planning and executing, the SOW lays down the entire landscape of the project. So it consists of introduction, the purpose of the project, the scope of the project, when it is done, where it is done, the tasks, milestones, deliverables, schedule, standards, success. How are you going to determine the success? Means how do you know the project is success? What is that you're going to measure or consider for measurement? Requirements, then any other things which needs to be considered as part of SOW as part of that specific project, and then closing. So SOW can be of three categories, which will have design details, level of effort, time and materials, which defines an hourly service and the materials required to perform the tasks, which may be performance based, focuses on purpose of the project, resources, and quality expected from the output. Question 51. What is a fishbone diagram and when is it used? So fishbone diagram, which is also called as Ishikawa diagram, is a visualization tool that used to categorize potential causes, that is problems, for an issue to identify the root causes. So fishbone diagram is used in product development and troubleshooting processes. It helps in team brainstorming for potential causes and then represents them in a diagram based on their degree of importance. So when this diagram is used, it helps us in identifying the possible causes of an issue, to develop a product that can address issue with current market offerings, to several areas of weakness or bottlenecks in the business process, to handle recurring issues or employees burnout, to ensure any correction will resolve the issue. So question 52. What is the Pareto principle or 80-20 principle? So as the name itself indicates, the Pareto principle states that 80% of consequences come from 20% of causes, indicating an unequal relationship between inputs and outputs. It can be applied to a range of areas like manufacturing, management, and human resources. It is usually focused on businesses that are client-based. Some of the advantages of Pareto principles are increased productivity, increased profitability, identifying and fixing problems, and improved customer service. Question 53. Can you tell us about your past project? So now, while answering these type of questions, firstly we need to understand this question is open and generic in nature. So while answering such questions, following points has to be considered. So identify what is that project you have done. So state the objective of the project deliverables, your roles and responsibility in the project, and what have you achieved in that project, what was accomplished, what went well, what did not go well, then project duration, project budget, and actual cost incurred in the project. Question 54. If customer is not happy with the project, what will you do as a project manager? So in any given project, customer satisfaction is very